Hi. Mid-conversation. Yes, I'll answer that question right now. Hey, everybody, welcome back to another Real Talk with Red Birth Green at our new time, 7 o'clock p.m., Thursday nights. We were just discussing as we wrap up the end, or like the end of spring and the end of this kind of session of this series, when you're going to see us. And so we're here together tonight. Next week, we're off because I'm gone. And then, so 2 weeks from tonight will be our last live of this. I don't know what exactly this is. Because we've journeyed a lot of different areas and had a lot of different conversations, and it's been lovely. And we're getting ready to shift gears for summer, and summer always is different and needs to look different, I think. So we talked a little bit last week, in case you missed it, about where you can find us this summer. It starts with registering and signing up for our newsletter at redbirthgreen.com/contact. Make sure that you're on that newsletter so that you can keep up with us. We've got fun things planned for you this summer, and we really want to see all of your lovely faces out in the community. So if you're a consistent watcher, or if you've only ever watched one of these episodes, if you see us, please come say hello and be like, hey, I listen and I love this talk about this, or hey, I never sent in a form to say, hey, I would love it if you would talk about this. But now I'm telling you, we would love that. I would love that so much to actually see people, right? We're all so ready for that. So yes, newsletter, absolutely. You'll catch a little bit maybe on social media, but really it's all about the newsletter this summer. So, but here's the recap. So this is the Cliff's Notes version. First Fridays of the month, you can find us out and about at Art Hop in June, July, and August for sure. September, TBD. Second Saturdays, you'll be able to find us for a period of time at the farmers market. You won't be able to miss us. That's all I can say. We have very visible things. So, yes, you will be able to find us at the farmers market on second Saturdays. Third Thursdays is when we get to have these conversations, but together in person. And I'm really looking forward to doing that a little bit differently throughout the summer. So, but they're pre-registration because we're in person and COVID and we've got to keep things safe for everybody, right? We will be outside, but there will be a maximum number of people who can attend to keep everyone safe and make sure everyone feels comfortable with the environment. So again, sign up for the newsletter so that you know when those registrations are out, and we would love to see you. So I think that's it. Did I miss anything for summer?
I think so.
Okay, cool. So I didn't even introduce myself tonight, but if you don't know us already, I'm Erica G. This is Rowan. We are the team at Red Birth Green. And we show up on Thursday nights to have these conversations where we really just kind of dig in and get real. And that has sometimes looked like saying the things that probably nobody would ever say in a public format, right? The last few weeks, we've been talking about the protective factors, 5 protective factors, just some very targeted areas, because some of them are really much better related in different activities. And so we've talked about parental resilience, talked about parenting during a pandemic, because that's a whole thing on its own. And last week, we talked about the importance of social connections, right? Which is also why we're trying to bring people together in a safe way this summer, because that is missing for a lot of folks right now. And so we want to do what we can for not just parents, but families and really the whole community to create opportunities for that. And tonight we're going to step into a new area, which is concrete support in times of need. Huge mouthful that just basically is a way of saying, how do you need people to show up for you if things are maybe not going quite as expected? Again, hello, the whole last year, right? Everything has shifted. Access has been difficult. And so I pulled a couple more questions from our handy dandy deck like we did last week. But if you have thoughts about this, we would love for you to drop in the comments and say, hey, this is how I need people to show up for me. Because sometimes, I can only speak for myself, sometimes I find it difficult to say exactly what I need in a situation, especially if it's a time of distress or duress where I'm just feeling overwhelmed. And so having other examples and other ideas of language models can sometimes be really beneficial. So share with friends. That's what we're here for. Yes. Do you ever struggle with that, Rowan? Like asking for exactly what you need in a situation?
Oh, yes, 100%. Yeah, and I mean, that for me, I will always chalk it up to just, like you said, nervous system overwhelm and like the very real freeze physiology that comes with being super overwhelmed. And it really impedes the function of our brains.
Oh, completely. Like it's a system override, right? Like fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. A lot of people don't know about fawn, right? And like that is also very real. That like that's kind of the like just like lay down and take it. Like, oh, I'm just gonna do whatever I need to do in order to get through this situation. You become the yes man, right? Or the yes woman or yes person. People pleasing. Yes, that people pleasing is synonymous with fawning. And yeah, it's just a system override. It's very difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really hard. It feels like in those moments, like I just don't know. Like I have no answer. I don't know what to tell you what I need because my body doesn't understand what's happening anymore. Yes. You know, like there's not like quite the like grasp on reality almost that you need to be able to answer that question.
Yes. And so in moments like that, that's where we need that concrete support, right? We need other people in our lives who are like, hey, you seem to be flooded right now. How can I help? Or you seem to be flooded right now. Why don't we, step outside for a minute? Or how about I get you some water? Like, and then usually that's enough to like get your system to like swing back into check just a little bit. And so we're going to talk a little bit tonight about what it looks like to like build those people and those relationships into your life. They may not be individual people. They could be organizations, right? Like Red Birth Green could be part of your network of concrete or support in times of need. So let's talk about it. I'm looking forward to this. So I'm really excited about one of the questions. Well, both of them, I guess. But so let's start with this because it's a little bit of a dreamy question, and I always love doing that. So what kind of community support systems should be put in place to strengthen families? I got really excited because I was like, hey, that's what we do. Like, we are working really hard every day to build different things into place and create new opportunities. And so yes, it got me really excited. And then I was like, oh, but what else? And what do I need? Right? Because that looks like too. So I'm totally distracted because Erica Simpson is like and is totally talking about my earrings, which I am in love with these earrings so much right now. So yes. What kind of community support systems do you need, Rowan?
The very first thing that popped into my head is like, well, just healing spaces, which is also what we create, but like really intentional spaces where everybody is showing up to heal and even like, I don't know, like skill share within healing, because that's a huge, huge community support that is almost always inaccessible, right? Like how great would it all be if we could get weekly massages? That would change everyone's life for so many reasons.
Yes.
But, like it's just that's not really where we are as a country, as a state, even a community. And so then the next thing that came to my mind is like, we need these community supports, but like we need the web, right? Because we can have all of these amazing resources for community support that nobody knows about. And we do, especially in Kalamazoo. Like there is a wealth of resources and support available, but people just don't know. And so having all of those individual places be together in that web so everyone knows what's available to them and this person can connect that person. Now I'm just describing like what we're working on,
As you're saying this, I was like, web of support. That sounds familiar, right? Trusted resources, like access. That actually is a big part of Deep Green and the Easy Access Clinic, right? Is it's not just about clients engaged within the system, it's also for the providers. Like it's a resource for the providers to come together and be able to work differently than they're currently able to do.
Mm-hmm.
I love, right?
Yeah.
And I can tell you right now, based on conversations that I'm having regularly, the providers are actually kind of excited about that opportunity too. That they can, find or just know that there's a place that like, oh, and this is my line. I don't have to know all the things, but I do have to know all of the people,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like I don't have to do all the things. I just have to know who does do them. And I feel like that's our role. And I also feel like it's not just our role, but I feel like every community needs that. And I'm happy that we can show up in that way, right? I think it's fantastic. Also, our container is a little bit smaller. It's very specific, but if we can be that place of support for the community and that web, like I'm honored to hold that space.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, where my brain was just going was to like what you said about providers and how like as a provider, as any kind of provider, like having somebody ask you a question that you really feel like you should know the answer to and you don't, especially when it comes to resources and like getting people connected with stuff, doesn't feel good. So when you said that providers really are excited about it, like, yeah, like they don't want to not have an answer to a question. And Cammie said down here, like we need info keepers, and that's exactly it. We need people who specialize in those resources.
Yes. And here's the thing. I want to circle back to talk about trusted resources, right? Because there's a difference. Like if there's anyone who's ever experienced like anything related to social services, right? Any home visiting programs, which again, we are a very resource rich community, right? There are tons of opportunities for engagement. But I think it's different if you're like, you ask, social worker a question or something like that. And they're like, oh yeah, here's a sheet about that. Right? Here's all the places. There's a big difference between that, because we've been on the receiving end of that before. And that usually like goes in the bottom of a diaper bag or your purse or gets folded up and shoved in your pocket and you don't necessarily look at it again. Versus like walking to a situation, one, being able to like have a conversation with a person, and then that person saying, oh, yeah, absolutely. Here, let me jot this down for you, right? Might be on a sticky note, but like that sticky note has so much more value than this like super organized piece of paper.
Right. And it's like bespoke that way too, right? Like somebody heard you, they listened to you, they took what you said and like internalized it and turned it around until they were like, hey, there's this resource that seems like it would fit you well.
Yes. And again, like that elevates like the value of humanity, right? And I love that. That feels so good in my soul to like return and restore humanity to all of these situations where it's just kind of been chipped away piece by piece. And like, I don't ever want to like put on the systems because like they are carrying a heavier load than any one system ever should be, right?
Definitely.
Yeah, that could be a whole conversation.
Which is why we're reclaiming the village.
It is why
we're relying on a large system.
Yes, reclaiming the village and reclaiming birth.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say the other thing we're reclaiming yet. I want to save that for like our final life. We're gonna hold on to that. But we're reclaiming one more thing this fall, and I'm really excited about it. So
me too.
Yes. But I just think about like just being able to have that like really like human connected interaction and how much that feeds a person, right? Especially if they're not getting that in other areas. It just feels really good.
Yeah, definitely. And that's true for like any type of community support.
Yeah.
It's got to have that real presence.
Yes, for sure. Okay. So the next question that I pulled is, I'm excited to talk about this actually. How do you know when you can heal yourself or when an expert is needed? So I'm a huge DIYer for like all the things, especially when it comes to healing. And there's a reason for that, and I can talk about it in a second. But um, I know that you have a propensity towards that as well. And so, how do we know when we have extended ourselves like within our limitations and it's time to like bring in a fresh view or someone with a different skill set? I don't want to say higher skill set, but just a different skill set.
Totally. I kind of think it's just when we can't answer the first question that we talked about in this live, which is, what do you need? Like, I mean that in like a more chronic sense than like an acute sense, where like
Yes.
you're in fight or flight and someone's asking you what you need right now and you don't know how to answer that. I'm talking about like the more long-term, like, this is something I'm struggling with and I can no longer answer for myself what I need. I know what's happening, maybe or maybe not. Like, I guess just as an example, like this past fall and winter when like mental health times were really tough for a lot of people, myself included. And, you know, I'm an herbalist and I love the plants, and like knew and that moment that they had what I needed, but I couldn't figure out how to put it all together and make it happen for myself. And even though that's my job, I asked another trusted herbalist for some support, and I received that support, you know? So it's when we can't answer that question for ourselves anymore. And like when that happens is going to be different for every person. Like for you and me, that's probably going to come later in the process than it might for somebody else, right? Or earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's such a good, like, easy summary, right? If your chief answer to your like internal questions is I don't know, that's probably a good indication that it's time to bring in a different skill set or a different viewpoint or whatever. And again, it can be someone that's on your same level playing field, right? Doesn't mean that you have to like go to a specialist or go to, like, it could be someone, it's that trusted relationship.
Right.
Someone that you know will mutually has your best interest at heart as well.
And somebody that you're not going to go to with the intention and with their expectation that they have an answer that you do not have. So like when you feel I don't know, it's not because you don't have the answer. It's because there's stuff all over the answer that's too much to work through. So like finding those people, finding those supports is really about like finding that trusted resource that you know is just going to help facilitate your own discovery of whatever that thing is, or use their skill set to give you tools that you might not have had before.
I love it. So what just came up for me was the word co-creation. Like, it's time to bring in someone else when co-creation is the better answer. Right? Like, when it's like, no, I really would be better off like going to someone else right now and saying, hey, I'm not sure about this at all anymore, but could we talk through it together? Right? Like that extra set of eyes on a situation, that extra viewpoint, because then the answer in that moment may then be like, you know what, this is actually beyond both of us. We do need to go to somebody who is more advanced than we are, or we actually need to bring allopathic things into this, or we need to like, this is a multimodality situation, right?
We're in a community support situation.
Yes. And like that too, where it's like sometimes it's about multiple minds coming together to come up with the answer to create the best solution, right? I'm all about living the best self. And so whatever that takes, sometimes it's all hands on deck and sometimes it's just your hands, right?
Yes. Love that. It's funny because you gave, like, we talked about this question. We didn't answer the question. You just read me the question before we came on here. And I was like, I don't know how to answer that question. And like, no, we don't have all of the answers by any means, but I feel like we just came up with some pretty
We do.
someone.
Because real talk, because it's what we do. Like, all right, let's pick this apart. What do we need to say? What do we need to, what are our thoughts on it? I think another thing that's coming up for me right now is like how easy it is to overcomplicate what support looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And that the idea that it has to be like a lot of things, or it has to be like all or nothing, right? So I'm wondering if we can talk about that a little bit. But like, because I think this also, we were talking about this before we came on live, that like they like perfectionist ideas, right? And like just all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's like, it gets to that point where it's like, well, you can actually help me, right? And like what I need is so big right now. There's no way that one person can help me.
Yes, or that this simple thing can help me.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you're right. It may not take all of the issue away, but it can maybe make it better.
Yeah.
And then maybe if it's a little bit better or the edge is taken off, then maybe you can like come in back into this place where you're like, oh, hey, you know what? I do have some answers that I didn't think I had. Like,
DIY it again.
Yeah, I can hop back on that DIY bus.
Yeah.
And keep on for a little bit longer. Let's keep riding a little bit longer.
Yeah.
I think it's easy to get caught up in that, especially if you're not feeling your best, right? Or if, money is really tight, or your food is feeling a little scary right now, like things like that, where it's like, oh, there's no way that somebody can actually help me with this. And yeah. Life is so complex. I think it's always been true, right? And I just think, again, like what we've seen and experienced as a collective village, like in the last year especially, has like really, really revealed all of those complexities, and that it's not ever really as simple as yes or no. Like, and I think that can be hard too. That can be hard too.
Yeah. When you talk about like those simple solutions and like the yes or no, I don't know, and also just like what we've all been going through, like the thing I always come back to, and you can have a conversation with me about most things and I'll somehow find a way to talk about the nervous system, because it's like everything. Like it's just our whole interface with the outside world, and the outside world has straight up not been safe at all for anyone for over a year. Now, the outside world has also straight up not been safe for a lot of people for a long time, but now it's like everyone is experiencing it collectively. And like when you're talking about like those simple supports and how sometimes it can be like, well, how can that this one person or that simple thing help me? Like the first thing that comes to mind is like learning, I don't know, when I've learned ways to support and ground my nervous system, sometimes I'm kind of mad about them, because I'm like, this affects my life so much and I feel so whatever all the time, so angry, scared, upset, whatever it is. Like, how can like dry brushing my skin help me at all? Or how can like taking 3 deep breaths do anything? You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. I very much know what you mean. Yes. It is. It's irritating, right? It's irritating. Like I'm sitting here, and actually this is like the perfect transition, because I was like, it's feeling like we should like give simple, like accessible tools within this conversation of like, what can you create yourself? What can you access yourself? If you're not feeling particularly connected to community right now, for whatever reason, right? How can you show up for yourself also in a time of need, right? We can be our own concrete support in a time of need. Like, let's not negate that. Like, we're talking about community and the village and collective care and all these things. that's all very, very important, right?
Mhm.
That is like, those are our long-term goals. But right now, in these moments, how can we show up for ourselves and be our own concrete support in a time of need? And you just started listing off. So one, yes, nervous system awareness. That actually kind of leans into another area, which is well, two. Actually, it's kind of the other two protective factors. So the other one of the other ones is knowledge of parenting and child development.
Uh-huh.
The other is social and emotional competence of children, right? And nervous system awareness is feeds right into both of those
Absolutely.
time. But if we start learning it with ourselves, it makes it that much easier to support the young humans and small humans in our life. Because if we don't have awareness of it in our own vessels, there's absolutely no way that we can support it in somebody else. Not
Totally.
right.
Because you're not going to recognize those signals that a kid gives you, your kid gives you, or somebody else gives you when their nervous system is not doing well. They're too up here. Like, you're not going to recognize that in somebody else if you can't recognize it in yourself.
No, because it's recognizing the difference between like, is this behavior, right? Or is this a symptom?
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a pro tip. Probably 75% of the time, it's a symptom. It's not a behavior.
Yeah.
Even in like the naughtiest, brattiest being, 75% of the time. And you can be mad. You drop in the comments. It's fine. But what about, we can talk through that. But I'm telling you, 75% of the time, it's a symptom. And most of the time, those symptoms are rooted in a stressed out neural system.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, really, if you think about our brains and how that's like how we take in all of our information, like, our entire body is a brain. That's like what we talk about when we talk about like co-regulation and somatic experiencing and all of that. It's like our nerves connect to our brain and run through our whole body and take in every piece of information that then funnels into the rest of our body to say, like, this is the situation right now. This is what you got to deal with, respond. And so then when other systems in our bodies start to shut down because that regulation of the nervous system isn't happening, like, it's just a cascade, and there can be so many things that come with that.
So many. And it can look, again, it looks in ways that you think are other things. So if you haven't ever seen, for some people, this is going to mean going back to like, high school biology, let's be honest, like, and like looking, if you haven't looked at an internal image of the body in a long time, I encourage you, like, that's your challenge for this week.
Yes, love that.
Right? Mm-hmm. Go and Google an image of our nervous system because it's fascinating. It is an information highway throughout our body. And this is so amazing because I had no idea we were going to go here tonight.
I mean, I usually come up with the nervous system one way or the other.
But it's just so relevant. So yes, that's your homework, right? If you're catching this after the fact, like, come back. And if you go and do your homework, come back to this live and drop it in the comments. Post a picture because there are all different ways to see it, right? I would love to see the ones that you connect with personally, because again, that's information sharing and it can help somebody else like picture it in a different way. But when you see how all of this comes together at the back of the head and then it all stems through our entire body, like, I don't know, it's like it's just the tip of the iceberg, really, in like understanding how we function as human beings. Like, for me, the nervous system is so much more important than our actual physiological structure, right? Like tissues, bones, joints, all of that, ligaments, those things are important, but they're more important when it comes to like movement and things like that, right? Like, if your nervous system is out of whack, everything in your life is also going to be out of whack.
And like literally the regeneration of every organ you just listed is dependent on the function of the nervous system.
Correct.
The regeneration of all of our tissue is dependent on the function of our nervous system because of a friend called cortisol.
Yes. Oh my God. Well, we started talking about cortisol because that is serious. That's a huge conversation in and of itself. And most people have no idea even what that is, right? So there's another piece of homework. If you've never heard the word cortisol, go look it up. And then if you see that image of your nervous system, and then you look up cortisol and the role that it plays within our body, because it's an important thing, again, in moderation, when it's in balance.
Yes.
When it's not so great. So this is a whole now self-exploration journey that we've just taken you on tonight unexpectedly, but that's what we show up for. You never know.
One more thing is that if you feel like you are already pretty grounded in like those images of the body and the nervous system, and you want to go a little further, look up vagal nerve theory.
Yes.
Because that's juicy.
It is. It's so juicy. And I think even just understanding like another piece, like go look at all of the components of the brain, right? Lean in, do a little bit of reading about development, right? Do we all have awareness of the fact that we don't actually have full brain maturation until age 25, regardless of your assigned gender? Like, seriously. So like, we place expectations on people, and sometimes they're not realistic simply because of that fact, right? That is a whole side thing for another protective factor. But it is really important that we have that collective understanding. So, if you're the adult in a grocery store and you see a small human who is like losing their mind, it's probably related to something in the nervous system being a little out of whack, being overstimulated, right? Sometimes understimulated, because that can show up in that way too for some kids, right? But also like to be the adult in the situation that can recognize it for what it is, and not that this kid is just being completely crazy right now or wild. It's that they have they need some support, right? And if you're the adult in the situation and it's someone else's child, and you recognize that that person does not have any of the understanding that you do, sometimes you can hold space differently, even in a grocery store. You can shoot a supportive eye glance, right? Instead of taking someone down and with daggers. Like it shifts everything. It's so important.
Those are all like little pieces of concrete support that you just mentioned too. Just from having that awareness and having that knowledge, being able to like extend that kindness to other people. I also saw that Tammy commented again that she calls her nervous system the superhighway, and that trauma can also cause a disruption in our nervous system. And
yes, absolutely. I think it's also important to point out that our brains and our nervous system are also incredibly resilient. And generally speaking, I actually hate that word with a passion. But it's very, very true. It's another big word, neuroplasticity. And it just is a really big way of saying that wherever your brain is now, it can be retrained in a different direction. I think that retraining process, that would be an answer to our question of when is an expert needed? That.
Yep. When you are just too stuck in a literal highway in your brain.
Yes. Yeah. It's like a rut, right? It's like, you veered off. Yes. And you've gone into the ditch and you can't get out of that ditch. Like,
that's much more what it's like.
You need to retrain. You need to smooth a new pathway. That's when you bring in an expert. There are people, and if that sounds curious to you and you're like, I feel like that could be beneficial in my life, reach out to us. We're happy to connect you with providers that can support in that. But it's a lot. Like that's a big commitment, right? Yeah. That's a big step for a lot of people. There are also easier things that you can do along the same lines. They start with like just breath. Just breathe.
Literally.
Yeah. What can taking 3 deep breaths do for me? A lot. It can do a lot.
The liver is only operating at 30% of the oxygen that it needs at any given time on average in a human. And that's not good. Like that's what flushes everything out of the body that we need to. So breathe. You will literally make your body function better.
Yes. Especially again, if you're feeling out of whack, take pause and fill your body with oxygen. Just take a step back and breathe it out. The other one too, and this is one that I do preach all the time, and that's hydration. Like, have you had water? Right? Like, not coffee colored water, not the same thing. Um, have you had water? Um, and I will ask my children that if things are going left, I'll be like, when was the last time you had a drink?
Mm-hmm.
Before we can talk about anything else, when was the last time you had a drink?
Yeah.
And even if it was recent, why don't we grab a glass of water right now and then we can talk? Or if they're in like major distress, like, and not, again, their nervous systems are short circuited in that moment. Maybe there's not words that can come out. I'll usually offer, like, can I get you some water? Right? It helps to restart the system. It's so easy. It's just so easy. So breath, water, and nutrition. Like, if you're starting to feel short circuited, when was the last time you had something to eat?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not like candy because that sounded good, or like not that cookie in the break room. Like actual food that's going to fuel you for more than a hot second. And this is not about candy and cookies, because those are fine.
Just more also of the good stuff.
Yes. Candy and cookies are not sustaining, especially if your cortisol is already on the rise and you're starting to be a little bit blitzed out.
Yeah. No, not so much. And nutrients on your skin also. Oil, because big nervous system piece there too. Just literally, you got olive oil. Put it all over.
You can eat it, and oil like this. If you can eat it, like if you would put it in food, it can go on your skin.
Not so much vegetable oil.
Yes. So olive oil, coconut oil, avocado oil, anything like that. Apricot oil, grapeseed. Yes.
Shea, cocoa.
Yes. Going, all the things.
Put the fat on your skin and smile.
Yes. Because that is like hydration from the outside, right? So like you drink water and it's going to hydrate the inside. But if you actually put those things back onto your skin, you're then creating a hydro environment from the outside, and it's very important too.
Yeah. And your nerves, a lot of your nerves are literally coated in fat. So just get some in that way too.
Yes.
Just for your skin.
All types of regeneration and rejuvenation happening, showing up for ourselves in times of need. I'm here for that.
Me too.
Yes, I love it. And I love that our conversation just went here. Like, I could never have anticipated.
Me neither.
Thanks for
listening. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so recap. You can show up for yourself, even if you're feeling disconnected from community or you feel like you're not ready to step back into community right now, right? By simply taking pause and breathing deeply and drinking water and making sure that you've had something to eat that will sustain you, right? If you don't have access to any of those things, please, please, please reach out to us so that we can support you in that, right? That's also stepping into that support in times of need. We can be that in these situations, right? So we want to make sure you have access to the things that you need in order to do that. We also want to make sure that you have access to a village of support and a community of support if that's what you desire too. If you're looking for new ways to connect, please sign up for our newsletter. It's in the comments, redbrickgreen.com/contact. It's super easy. It is not spammy. We don't have time to spam. It's that simple. So please sign up for that. That's how you will find us in community this summer. We would love to see each and every one of your lovely faces. Share that opportunity with your friends as well, or bring your friends and just come. These conversations, we have one more virtual conversation this month. It is happening 2 weeks from tonight. And then we transition into being able to see you in person once a month in June on the third Thursdays. And I'm thrilled. I really cannot wait. We will be outside. Bring blankets, bring chairs, whatever you need to be comfortable. And we'll do the same thing except together. And I can't wait. So until then, thank you so much for spending these moments with us. We really do love it. And we hope that you love it too. Until next time, we'll see you soon.